Mr. and Mrs. Hacktack were rather old and rather poor. They had a small house in a village among the mountains, and a tiny patch of green land on the mountainside. Here they grew the vegetables which were all they had to live on, and when it was a good season, and they did not need to eat up everything as soon as it was grown, Mr. Hacktack took what they could spare in a basket to the next village, which was a little larger than theirs, and sold it for as much as he could get, and bought some oil for their lamp and fresh seeds, and every now and then, but not often, a piece of cotton stuff to make new coats and trousers for himself and his wife. You can imagine they did not often get the chance to eat meat. Now, one day it happened that when Mr. Hacktack was digging in his precious patch, he unearthed a big brass pot. He thought it strange that it should have been there for so long without his having come across it before, and he was disappointed to find that it was empty. Still, he thought they would find some use for it, so when he was ready to go back to the house in the evening, he decided to take it with him. It was very big and heavy, and in his struggle to get his arms around it and raise it to a good position for carrying, his purse, which he always took with him in his belt, fell to the ground, and to be quite sure he had it safe, he put it inside the pot and so staggered home with his load. As soon as he got into the house, Mrs. Hacktack hurried from the inner room to meet him. "My dear husband," she said, "whatever have you got there?" "For a cooking pot it is too big. For a bath a little too small," said Mr. Hacktack. "I found it buried in our vegetable patch, and so far it has been useful in carrying my purse home for me." "Alas," said Mrs. Hacktack, "something smaller would have done as well to hold any money we have, or are likely to have," and she stooped over the pot and looked into its dark inside. As she stooped, her hairpin, for poor Mrs. Hacktack had only one hairpin for all her hair, and it was made of carved bone, fell into the pot. She put in her hand to get it out again, and then she gave a loud cry, which brought her husband running to her side. "What is it?" he asked. "Is there a viper in the pot?" "Oh, my dear husband," she cried, "what can be the meaning of this? I put my hand into the pot to fetch out my hairpin and your purse, and look, I have brought out 2 hairpins and 2 purses, both exactly alike." "Open the purse. Open both purses," said Mr. Hacktack. "One of them will certainly be empty." But not a bit of it. The new purse contained exactly the same number of coins as the old one. For that matter, no one could have said which was the new and which the old. And it meant, of course, that the Hacktacks had exactly twice as much money in the evening as they had had in the morning. "And 2 hairpins instead of 1, cried Mrs. Hacktack, forgetting in her excitement to do up her hair, which was streaming over her shoulders. "There is something quite unusual about this pot." "Let us put in the sack of lentils and see what happens," said Mr. Hacktack, also becoming excited. They heaved in the bag of lentils, and when they pulled it out again, it was so big it almost filled the pot, they saw another bag of exactly the same size waiting to be pulled out in its turn. So now they had 2 bags of lentils instead of 1. "Put in the blanket," said Mr. Hacktack. "We need another blanket for the cold weather." And sure enough, when the blanket came out, there lay another behind it. "Put my wadded coat in," said Mr. Hacktack, "and then when the cold weather comes, there will be one for you as well as for me. Let us put in everything we have in turn. What a pity we have no meat or tobacco, for it seems that the pot cannot make anything without a pattern." Then Mrs. Hacktack, who was a woman of great intelligence, said, "My dear husband, let us put the purse in again and again and again. If we take 2 purses out each time we put 1 in, we shall have enough money by tomorrow evening to buy everything we lack." "I am afraid we may lose it this time," said Mr. Hacktack, but in the end he agreed, and they dropped in the purse and pulled out 2. Then they added the new money to the old and dropped it in again and pulled out the larger amount twice over. After a while, the floor was covered with old leather purses, and they decided to just throw the money in by itself. It worked quite as well and saved trouble. Every time, twice as much money came out as went in, and every time they added the new coins to the old and threw them all in together. It took some hours to tire of this game, but at last Mrs. Hacktack said, "My dear husband, there is no need for us to work so hard. We shall see to it that the pot does not run away, and we can always make more money as we want it. Let us tie up what we have." It made a huge bundle in the extra blanket, and the Hacktacks lay and looked at it for a long time before they slept, and talked of all the things they would buy and the improvements they would make in the cottage. The next morning they rose early, and Mr. Hacktack filled a wallet with money from the bundle and set off for the big village to buy more things in one morning than he had bought in a whole 50 years. Mrs. Hacktack saw him off, and then she tidied up the cottage and put the rice on to boil, and had another look at the bundle of money, and made herself a whole set of new hairpins from the pot, and about 20 candles, instead of the one which was all they had possessed up to now. After that she slept for a while, having been up so late the night before, but just before the time when her husband should be back, she awoke and went over to the pot. She dropped in a cabbage leaf to make sure it was still working properly, and when she took 2 leaves out, she sat down on the floor and put her arms round it. "I do not know how you came to us, my dear pot," she said, "but you are the best friend we ever had." Then she knelt up to look inside it, and at that moment her husband came to the door, and turning quickly to see all the wonderful things he had bought, she overbalanced and fell into the pot. Mr. Hacktack put down his bundles and ran across and caught her by the ankles and pulled her out. But oh mercy! No sooner had he set her carefully on the floor than he saw the kicking legs of another Mrs. Hacktack in the pot. What was he to do? Well, he could not leave her there, so he caught her ankles and pulled, and another Mrs. Hacktack, so exactly like the first that no one could have told one from the other, stood beside him. "Here's an extraordinary thing," said Mr. Hacktack, looking helplessly from one to the other. "I will not have a second Mrs. Hacktack in the house," screamed the old Mrs. Hacktack. All was confusion. The old Mrs. Hacktack shouted and wrung her hands and wept. Mr. Hacktack was scarcely calmer, and the new Mrs. Hacktack sat down on the floor as if she knew no more than they did what was to happen next. "One wife is all I want," said Mr. Hacktack, "but how could I have left her in the pot?" "Put her back in it again," cried Mrs. Hacktack. "What, and draw out 2 more?" said her husband. "If 2 wives are too many for me, what should I do with 3? No, no." He stepped back quickly as if he was stepping away from the 3 wives, and, missing his footing, lo and behold, he fell into the pot. Both Mrs. Hacktacks ran, and each caught an ankle and pulled him out and set him on the floor, and there, oh mercy, was another pair of kicking legs in the pot. Again each caught hold of an ankle and pulled, and soon another Mr. Hacktack, so exactly like the first that no one could have told one from the other, stood beside them. Now the old Mr. Hacktack liked the idea of his double no more than Mrs. Hacktack had liked the idea of hers. He stormed and raged and scolded his wife for pulling him out of the pot, while the new Mr. Hacktack sat down on the floor beside the new Mrs. Hacktack, and looked as if, like her, he did not know what was going to happen next. Then the old Mrs. Hacktack had a very good idea. "Listen, my dear husband," she said. "Now, do stop scolding and listen, for it is really a good thing that there is a new one of you as well as a new one of me. It means that you and I can go on in our usual way, and these new people, who are ourselves and yet not ourselves, can set up house together next door to us." And that is what they did. The old Hacktacks built themselves a fine new house with money from the pot, and they built one just like it next door for the new couple, and they lived together in the greatest friendliness, because, as Mrs. Hacktack said, the new Mrs. Hacktack is really more than a sister to me, and the new Mr. Hacktack is really more than a brother to you. The neighbors were very much surprised, both at the sudden wealth of the Hacktacks and at the new couple, who resembled them so strongly that they must, they thought, be very close relations of whom they had never heard before. They said it looks as if the Hacktacks, when they so unexpectedly became rich, decided to have two of everything, even of themselves, in order to enjoy their money more.